I'm Anderson Hurst. Is this the greatest Seahawks team of all time?
I'm Chris Crawford. Yes.
And I'm Rob Rang, and I'm going to struggle to refute that just because of the bias of the recency as well as the domination that was Super Bowl 60.
Hey 12, it's the Seahawks squad. Everything Seattle Seahawks every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Emerald City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get loud, 12s. The Seahawks Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Seahawks Squad Show. We're still coming off the high of winning the Super Bowl. Pretty fun to be hosts of a show of a team that just won Super Bowl 60 in dominating fashion over the New England Patriots. I want to get the thoughts of Chris Crawford, who was there in the stadium in person for a Seahawks Super Bowl victory. That is a bucket list thing if I've ever heard of one.
Sure.
We're going to talk about the parade yesterday, how awesome it was to see the city of Seattle show out once again on another perfect day for it. And then I want to have a fun conversation. I want to talk about, I realize that, they say comparison is the thievery of joy. But I want to compare this 2025 Seahawks team to the 2013 Seahawks team, the LOB, the original Super Bowl winners for Super Bowl 48. And, before we get into that whole conversation, we'll talk about it later. I just want to say, I'm not trying to put down either one of those teams or anything like that. Those are the two greatest teams, obviously, in Seahawks history, borderline the Seattle sports history. But I think it's fun that we can now have that conversation. We have two Super Bowl winning teams that did it in obviously the best team of that season. And we can compare the two. And I think it's fun. So we're now a franchise that can, look at two multiple Super Bowl victory winning teams and compare the two teams as to which you think is better. And I honestly don't think there's a correct answer. I'm going to be completely honest. So we'll talk about what we think on that end. But first, Chris Crawford, you were in the building for Super Bowl 60. I saw you sent out a couple pictures of your view. That was fantastic. I'm so glad you were able to go. I know you tried to join post game, but it's okay. We had it covered. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But just talk about your reaction as someone who was in the stadium for one of the three major sports championships in Seattle history. So just talk about that moment for you.
Oh, it was incredible. It was incredible. And I got to thank my brother-in-law because he really pushed me to go. He really was like, Chris, you need to go. And I was apprehensive about it. Part of it was because some of you guys know I've dealt with some health stuff. And I was like, what if I get sick there? What if I have something and I'm all by my lonesome and, something terrible was to happen there? But if something terrible happens in Shelton, Washington, I'm in trouble too. So it might as well, and it was just an incredible experience. The stadium was so, I had it in my head that this was just going to be a corporate stooge fest, that it was just going to be a bunch of peoples in suit and ties who were not paying attention to the game, a bunch of people who weren't really interested in the final score. No, it was loaded with Seahawk fans, man. Loaded. My estimate walking through was about 70-30, something along those lines for the Seahawks. And, the Patriots fans were loud. I want to give a ton of credit. Every Patriot fan I talked to was nice. Every single one of them was just super and very happy for me as I was walking out. A lot of congratulations. There's some disappointed people as well. There was one guy I do have to bring up. He was in section 211. I was in section 212. How ominous is that, by the way, that I was in the 12 section 12. Of it. Worked out pretty well. He was with a bunch of Patriots fans, and he took off his coat, and his shirt was made out of the Richard Sherman reaction to the interception.
Oh, man.
I was so happy that guy was miserable. I was so happy. I'm sorry. I try not to Schadenfreude very much, but boy, was I happy to see that guy not be happy. And they left early. You're going to be surprised to hear that they did not stick around for the final whistle. as for my thoughts on the game, I don't think you could overstate how good this defense was, in particular the first 3 quarters. And then, they take the gas off. A buddy of mine, not a buddy, but someone I made friends with kind of in the game, accused the streaker of being a plant by the NFL so that it took momentum away, because it sure seemed like everything started going well for the Patriots right after that. But outside of that, the Seattle defense was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. The blitzes that they were designing, the ability to take advantage of a not very good and very injured, clearly, Will Campbell, were incredible. Kenneth Walker was an absolute wagon on offense. Cooper Kupp and A.J. Barner both, I think, played fantastic football games. But just being in that stadium, and there is nothing like seeing, and I know this now, I always seeing it on TV, it looked cool. Seeing the confetti of your favorite football team go up in the air is something that's just indescribable. And KJR asked me to record a video right afterwards, and my plan was to record it right after that. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't get the tears out. And then luckily I found somewhere to go so that it wasn't so loud to record it as well. Yeah. But seeing that confetti, man, seeing that blue and green go up in the air was just something that I knew was going to be cool, but I didn't realize how emotional it would make me. And this is just a culmination of a year where domination has been the talking point, and they dominated this year. They dominated that Super Bowl. It would have been fun to watch them win on a last-second field goal. Sure. Don't get me wrong, and that probably would have been even more, screamy woo-woo stuff. But watching this team do what they did basically from week 2 on, and parts of week 1 too, but from week 2 on, it's indescribable. I can't sit here and say, hey, everyone should go to the Super Bowl, because the price is stupid. It's stupid. It's stupid. It's stupid. But if you do have the chance, do it, because it's just an incredible thing. And I hope that, maybe I'll get a chance to go watch it in LA as well.
That would be pretty sick. Rob, now that you've had a couple days to, take it all in, as we always do during the season, right? Mm-hmm. A little, maybe watch some film, maybe like, okay, we're decompressing after the initial raw reaction of our post-game show. What are your thoughts regarding this Seahawks team? Has anything, popped out to you in these last couple of days that you want to mention, or just make sure people put in perspective on how special this is in general? Like, just, talk about, after decompressing a little bit from Sunday evening, how you're feeling at this point, talking about a Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I think that Chris just explained it very well, and just using the word dominant. That's for Seattle's defense to play that well when the Patriots offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels is the assistant coach of the year. He's going for his 6th Super Bowl title as a assistant coach. I mean, just remarkable kind of stuff. Against the guy that finishes a vote or 2 behind in the MVP race, in Drake May. And for Seattle to, essentially just control that game, New England doesn't score until the 4th quarter. They wind up with 2 total rushing first downs. I mean, there's just so many statistics that you can mention that just speak to the dominance. But I loved how it was like a culmination of what Mike McDonald's been talking about all year long, as far as just being the complementary football. And what I've always taken that to mean is just the offense and defense, special teams all work together in such great harmony. And to see Jason Myers, have the, hit 5 field goals and break the NFL record for the most field goals in a Super Bowl, to see the way that Michael Dixon was completely dominant, and as dominant of a performance I've ever seen from a punter in any kind of a big game.
Right.
The respect that Rashid Shaheed, of course, forced New England to show. And similarly, New England, New England has a terrific returner in, Marcus Jones, as we talked about before. For Seattle to shut him down essentially because of the punting, just eliminating the opponent's best weapons. And then, which is, again, what I thought that Seattle did a terrific job of. And then for New England to eliminate Seattle's best weapon. I mean, Jackson Smith-Njigba was a relative side note throughout this game after being, arguably the best player, or voted the offensive player of the year.
Yeah.
I thought that it just, again, showed Seattle's dominance. Oh, you can take away this? Well, then we're going to hit you with the biggest dose of Kenneth Walker III that we've seen all season long. 29, combined rushing and receiving attempts. That was the most times he held the ball in a game all season long. Seattle waited for him. It's almost like a jack in the box kind of a thing. And Seattle popped exactly when they needed to. And so it was like at the end, I used the word proud, I think, to describe it. That was the word I used, Anders, when you asked me right after the Super Bowl performance. It was almost like watching an artist or a conductor in an orchestra. I just want to put my feet up and just kind of just fold my arms back and just like almost have a cigar.
Sure.
What a performance, and that was that remains kind of my feeling after this particular game.
Yeah, I think that's wonderfully described. You mentioned Kenneth Walker there and a couple other performances. I just want to ask you guys, maybe, we can have this conversation. Do you think it was the correct Super Bowl MVP was awarded? Rob, I'll start with you.
I think the more I watch the tape, and I have had an opportunity now to watch a little bit more and just appreciate defensively, I think that you have to go co-MVP between Kenneth Walker III and Devin Witherspoon. I just think that the impact that he had in this game, I think that they should have recognized the defense in some way. But because he had the performance that he had, and obviously you have to score points to win a game, I think that Kenneth Walker III deserved to at least get co-MVP honors. And I'm not angry at anybody because he got the recognition that I thought that he deserved.
Yeah. All right. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, this would be a game if you could have an offensive MVP, a defensive MVP, and a special teams MVP. It would be kind of wonderful, except for who do you give it to between Myers and Michael Dixon? Because they were both so phenomenal, right? All of those field goals from Jason Myers were just down the middle. They were so impressive. But what Michael Dixon did to change the game, I don't think you can overstate. I'm so glad you brought him up, because even when they picked up first downs after they got inside of the 2 or 3, boy, you see the difference there between starting from inside the 5 compared to starting inside the 25, right? Instead of them getting close to field goal range, they were still needed multiple first downs to even get inside of scoring range because of what Dixon did. Man, they were both so good. Ultimately, if I had to pick one guy, it probably would be Walker. But boy, watching the replay and seeing Devin Witherspoon and how well he played in this game, it was phenomenal. And I loved the one clip I've kind of seen. I was telling Anders before we got on that I've saved a lot of the theatrical stuff for afterwards. But McDonald asking him, how many sacks did you have? And he said, I don't care. That doesn't matter to me at all. That guy gets it. He just gets it. And the football game that he played, you basically have 2 of the best defensive blitzers already in your backfield in football, and they both played terrifically. If I had to pick one, it's Walker, because you don't score any points without Walker, right? You just don't score any points. But what Witherspoon did and creating a touchdown himself, it's pretty darn close.
Yeah, oh man, I have so many thoughts. Number one, I want to add to the Michael Dixon part of it. There was a moment in, I believe, early third quarter, on a Jason Myers field goal. Bad snap. Michael Dixon, the holder, picks it up, puts it in a great spot for Jason Myers, still ends up making the field goal. Combine that with his punts. Yeah. And he just has effects on the game in so many different ways. But I agree with you on K9 as well. He was basically the majority of the offense. Sam Darnold, admittedly, I think he had a fine day, did exactly what you needed to do to win, but you missed some throws. It's fine. It's okay. Again, he doesn't care. That's one thing that's, I think, special about this team is the fact that all they care about is getting that win from every single player.
Sure.
From the quarterback to K9 to Devin Witherspoon to Leonard Williams, they're all hyping each other up. Ernest Jones as well. I was telling you guys right before we went live, I was watching the Mic'd Up on YouTube. And by the way, if you guys haven't seen that, it's on NFL's YouTube page. Please watch it after you consume
Yes.
this Seahawks squad show here on Locked On Seahawks. It's fantastic. You see the vibe of the guys talking on the sideline, how much it's really a full team effort. And to me, I don't know if there'd ever be this, but my Super Bowl MVP would be Mike McDonald, man. Like he, first of all, scheme wise, absolutely pantsed a 6-time Super Bowl champion in Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
And second of all, just the leadership that he is able to get from his players, but also that's a reflection of their head coach, right?
Sure.
Everyone playing selflessly, doing their job, and just wanting the victory. It's not a personal achievement or anything like that. And I don't want to put down a lot of other NFL players or something that would maybe exert that emotion more often than not. Right. I feel like most NFL players feel like if they do better, their team's going to do better.
Sure.
But there's a different level of acceptance with this team that they know their team's good. They know that everyone doing their job is going to make them win almost every game that they played this year. And that's exactly what happened. So I think that's the perfect description of the 2025 Seattle Seahawks, is that you could have picked a guy from every single side of the ball to win Super Bowl MVP. That's how dominant they were.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say something real quick about that. I think one of the things that helps here too is how young this football team is and how much they believe they're going to be back. Like one of the most heartbreaking stories to me in NFL history is Walter Payton was incredibly disappointed that he did not score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. And one of the reasons was Walter Payton was not a 23 or 24-year-old. There was a very good chance that this was going to be his last chance, and he didn't. And yeah, I'm sure JSN would have liked a few more of his connections to land, right? I think he was like 4 for 12 or something like that. And thank goodness he was able to get back in the game. And I'm sure Kenneth Walker would have liked that holding call not to happen so that he could have gotten the touchdown there. And I'm sure Sam Darnold would have liked to have connected, particularly on that where JSN breaks wide open and on that touchdown. And then a couple of terrific plays from Christian Gonzalez. But I think it helps knowing that, like, this is not their last shot at this. This is not their glory moment. I mean, it's a huge glory moment.
Yes.
But you have to feel so confident that this team is going to have opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. I can't help but think that plays a factor into it as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I'm so excited for Seahawks fans because of the fact that you do have such a young, exciting nucleus. I mean, this season caught a lot of people by surprise. Obviously, I mean, they ended the season as a 60-1 underdog to win the Super Bowl. Appropriately enough. What to me though, you could see that the team was talented. I mean, if you believed in what Mike McDonald did a year ago when the defense was playing so well, and then you believed your own eyes that just the types of players that Seattle had brought in during the offseason, whether it be a DeMarcus Lawrence or Nicky Manlori or whatever, you just knew that, my goodness, if they were this good before, they should be this much better now. And then you look at the just by contrast, the aging teams in the NFC West. And so there was reason to believe that something like this could happen 100%. If the team would be willing to play without an ego. If Sam Darnold didn't play the way that, frankly, at times Geno Smith played, where it was more about his individual statistics than it was about the team's success. And how JSN was going to be able to seize that mantle as being wide receiver one. And all the myriad of different things that had to fall into place. But it reminded me, Anders, when you were describing before about how they all kind of came together. There's the Minnesota Golden Gophers head coach PJ Fleck has long used an expression of row the boat, and it's always I thought was a really appropriate analogy for football. And that again, if everybody is rowing the boat together, nobody is out of rhythm. Because if you've ever rowed a boat, then if you're a little bit too far, pulling too much on one arm or whatever, then the boat's going to start to go the wrong direction. It's not going to be as efficient. It's not going to be as fast and smooth and straight. And the fact that Seattle did row the boat together as much as they did, and you saw that even during the way that they built each other up on the sideline, they built each other up during the parade. It really does show this is a true team rather than just a collection of individual talents.
Yeah, 100% agree, and that's why the term "rowing the same direction" is that's something that I associate with this team. That's like a synonym. The 2025 Seahawks and rowing the same direction. I think that's just a perfect description of what it looks like, right? And that, I'm going to attribute most of that to the head coach. You have to get everyone to buy in, and the fact that they did so early and from the beginning of the season, it's so fun to watch. I think this is one of those teams where maybe I don't want to speak for other Seahawks fans, but I think people will look back on this team in 5, 10, 15, 20 years and maybe appreciate them even more than they do right now because of that aspect of it. They don't necessarily have the headline grabbers that the 2013 team did, or maybe even the Russell Wilsons on kind of young and up and coming quarterbacks or anything like that. It's just a really, really good football team, an elite football team.
Yep.
We'll have that conversation obviously a little bit later on in the show, but you did mention the parade, Rob, because I want to touch on that. I think that's a big moment for Seattle sports fans. That's the moment for the fans. Like, I think the Super Bowl is the moment for a lot of the players and the coaches to get to that point, get over the mountaintop, and then the parade is for the fans. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on what you saw, what you heard, and just the moments from the parade that from all perspectives was an overwhelming success on all fronts, from the city of Seattle, from the Seahawks, from the fans, all aspects of it. So I'm going to get your guys' thoughts on that here in the next segment on the Seahawks Squad Show, as we once again are wax poeting about a Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks football team. Man, that is fun to say. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a logical TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction possible. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it for you. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Welcome back, Seahawks Squad Show on Locked On Seahawks with Anderson Hurst, Chris Crawford, Rob Rang with you guys. We're just reminiscing once again. We'll move forward a little bit. I still want to look back a little bit on how special this team was, and we'll do that. We'll do some looking forward on what's next. Can they repeat all that stuff a little bit later on? What's different from the coaching staff, how the roster is going to play out, and obviously the draft and all that stuff. We'll come up and do that in the next few weeks here. But I still want to just reminisce and wax poetic about how special this team really was. Later on in the show, we're going to get kind of a comparison between this team and the 2013 team that also won the Super Bowl, which I think will be a really fun exercise. But first, I want to talk to you guys about the parade. I'm just curious. We don't have to go super long on this, but what are your thoughts in general about what you saw, how special it was from everyone that I heard who was there? I was not. I had to work at KGR in the studios during the parade. It was a great day just in general, but from everyone I heard, everyone was in a good mood. There wasn't very many, for 1 million people being in the center of the city, which that's what they estimate was there, more than in 2014, by the way, which is crazy to me. I would have expected some stuff to go down, especially but you don't hear anything about that. Everyone was in a good mood. It was, the Seahawks team, very drunk. Let's put it bluntly, very drunk. God. Everyone except their head coach, which again, if there's one description of the Seattle Seahawks, it's that everyone was drunk, and then Mike McDonald was as sober as a goat, just going forward. But Chris, let's start with you. From what you saw, I don't know if you were able to be there because I know you were traveling back from the Super Bowl and stuff like that. But just how special is it to kind of, you take pride. You're someone who's been in this area for a long time. So you take pride in your city. This is a moment for the city. So how special was the parade for you?
Oh, it's so special. And watching all the highlights, and I really wanted to go. In fact, I woke up at 6 a.m. and I said, if you're feeling good, you can go try this. And my thighs felt like the Smurfs had moved inside of me and were just stabbing me. So I said, nope, this is good.
Yeah.
And not to sound patronizing, but this is one of those things where like, this is not really for the people who went to the game. This is for everybody who had a chance, who watched the game, and who like didn't have that opportunity.
This is Chris is saying this is for the little people.
This is for the little people. The little gnome that was stabbing me. This is exactly who it was supposed to be. I knew that was going to come off as so freaking Fraser Clank. Just to let you guys know, I had top ramen for dinner like the last 4 nights. So let's not get it twisted on those lifestyle Chris Crawford is living. But I thought it was awesome, and I thought it was really cool to hear 0 arrests. And I'm sorry, man. The reputation that this city does not deserve is something that you have to think about with this stuff. And hearing that there was no trouble, I did hear, there's some stuff that was damaged a little bit. That was going to happen. A million people. Yeah. The one thing I want to talk about is I saw a bunch of stuff online, and I see this every year. Like Mike Morris was celebrating like crazy during this thing.
Good for him.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. A lot of people point out he didn't do anything. He didn't record any stats. Guys, this is exactly why you're celebrating in the Super Bowl. This is what you worked for. This is yours. This is your thing. This is your chance to celebrate the community and the camaraderie and working with your team. And I guarantee you, if you asked Mike McDonald, I think he'd give you the same answer for every single player, that he loves them and all of that stuff. But I guarantee you ask players, Mike Morris was a huge part of what they did in practices. Yeah. Mike Morris was a huge part of what they did building up game plans. Mike Morris was a huge part of, being a leader in the locker room and talking to young players who, maybe going through things that he went through. This is awesome. This is their time to shine. This is when I want to see the Mike Morrises. This is when I want to see the guys who didn't get a lot of playing time. This is their chance to celebrate this thing, because you know what? Life's going to be really hard for a lot of these guys in a couple of months. Really hard. You're going to wonder if you're going to get on the roster. You're going to wonder who the hell this team is drafting and looking for replacements for you. This is their time to shine. But I just thought it was awesome. And seeing the just absolute drunken buffoonness without creating issues is awesome. It's so cool. And I'm so proud of my city. And I'm so proud of the Seahawks for making this such a spectacular event.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I felt so much pride in my city and pride for my football team, both. And you could feel sometimes there is a little bit of a disconnect from the city and the team, whatever sport it is that they represent. That is not the case with this Seattle team. They absolutely put on for the city of Seattle. Spoken perfectly by Ernest Jones, which I cannot repeat on the air here. I actually, you know what? I'll repeat it, but bleep it out. When he says, if you have anything to say about my quarterback, if you have anything to say about my O-line, if you have anything to say about my defense, and if you have anything to say about my city, I got 2 words for you. Bleep you. So I love that about EJ. Rob, what are your thoughts on the parade? So as we kind of are ready to run through a wall here.
Well, that's the thing. I was going to repeat that exact same speech, except I wasn't going to bleep it out. So thank you for that.
Saved us millions.
No, I just have to kind of echo the sentiments that you guys have there. We are a city that some nationally have portrayed us as being full of violence and full of anger. And instead, I thought it was a demonstration of pride, of love, very thankful for the weather turning out as nice as it did to kind of support that. And a lot of patience. I think people there's as anybody who's around the area, around the city knows that there's an awful lot of construction going on right now. And so for people to just kind of knowingly go down there and have to deal with all the traffic and all of the hurry up and wait kind of moments. I thought that it really did turn out beautifully. And I love the fact that the players themselves seemed to be as willing to interact with the fans. I mean, there was
100%.
obviously some of the players that basically sat up in the bus from the entire time, but there was an awful lot of interaction. Some of Seattle's biggest superstars, taking selfies and and signing footballs or jerseys or whatever as they walked through the entire course of the parade. So the pessimist in me always worries like, oh, something bad's going to happen. And
Sure.
instead, I thought that it turned out incredibly well. And again, we got to see some of the personality of some of the players.
Yes.
Whether it be EJ, whether it be, AJ, there was just so many of the guys that showed off exactly who they were. And as Chris was saying, I think that they deserved that moment.
Oh, yeah.
I think it felt like that they recognized how big of a deal it was to the city. They delivered and they want an opportunity to kind of bask in that sunlight. And they literally had that opportunity.
Real quick,
Yeah.
I just want to give a shout out to everybody. From what I heard, the cleanup thing was immaculate and that everything was just cleared super quick, that there's not any remnants for a bunch of stuff. And part of that is because we're a city who gives a crap about the environment and we throw our stuff away, but shout out to everybody who got everything cleaned up, because as Rob mentioned, this city is going through a lot right now, and it's not a convenient time to have 1 million people lined up on the streets of 4th. That is not the best timing for it, but shout out to everybody because they handled it absolutely perfectly.
Yeah, and I love that, but both on the city's perspective and the team's perspective.
No doubt.
I just want to shout out, like, to me, this team hits different because of how much it feels like they're a representation of the city.
Yeah.
I think with the LOB team in 2013, it was just a bunch of personalities that everyone could gravitate towards.
Sure.
And it was like, oh my God, we have some of the GOATs at their positions here, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You have Marshawn Lynch is just larger than life by being not larger than life, which is kind of a weird description of him. But Richard Sherman with his giant mouth, with Cam Chancellor with his just destroying factor that he has. Earl Thomas, just how much ground. There were larger than life figures on that team.
Yeah.
With this team, I feel like they're more grounded is a word I'm kind of looking for, both in personality and just in terms of their, awareness publicly. It's easier, my opinion, easier to relate to as a fan, kind of guys that, go about their way, doing their job, don't have to create just noise everywhere and be like the biggest star on the field, but they just, and it was personified in their reactions with the fans during the parade. And Rob points it out. I want to echo that there were guys that got out of the bus, were walking the entire parade route to go and high five fans, take pictures. These guys get it, man. They get it. And I get emotional thinking about it, how much they realize how much this means to this city. They don't make it about them. They realize that they are the ones that won the Super Bowl. They could easily make it about them and everyone wouldn't care.
Of course.
But they don't. They know it's not about them. It's about the team.
Yep.
It's about the city. And God, I just love it. I love how much these guys are able to do that. So I get emotional thinking about it. And I know a lot of people that were there said it was an awesome time. Excellent work all the way around. And that was such a great moment for Seattle. So hopefully we'll have more of those. Hopefully we'll have another one next year. I would love for a back-to-back appearance. And we can talk about that at a later date if they're, destined to go that way. As we talk about it now, I want to compare. And I've mentioned this at the top of the show. I realize comparison is the theory of joy, but this is more in a exercise of we have two of the greatest football teams of all time, and I truly believe that. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Seahawks fan. I truly think the 2013 Seahawks and the 2025 Seahawks are two of the greatest football teams to ever play this game.
No question.
And I want to compare the two. Which one do you think is better? We'll go through kind of position by position. And kind of figure it out. If these guys were to play a hypothetical football game, how would it go? So let's do it. Let's do this fun exercise as we compare the two champions in Seattle Seahawks history. Let's have some fun with it. We'll do that on the other side of the break here on the Seahawks Squad Show. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense really fast. Speed skating races decided by inches. Man, that is one of my favorites. Hockey games, US and Canada both won today, that feel different right from the opening face-off, and even niche events that become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back. Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hurst, Chris Crawford, Rob Rang. Let's compare the two champion teams, the 2013 Seahawks team and the 2025 Seahawks team. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball, and let's start with the quarterback. I think it's kind of one of the biggest areas of contention, so to speak. And I want to specifically point out this is not during their entire tenure. This is that 1 year. So the 2013 Russell Wilson versus 2025 Sam Darnold. Chris, who are you taking?
First of all, real quick, did you guys see the luge relay? That is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. If you paid me, first of all, if I even tried to jump up and touch the thing, it would be Chris Crawford dead at the age of 42. But like seeing that that's an Olympic thing is an absolutely insane thing. That's my way of saying I don't want to answer this question because I love Russell Wilson. I have loved Russell Wilson unconditionally. I think Russ did more with less, if I'm being honest with you. Like, Doug Baldwin was a great receiver, but he wasn't really Doug Baldwin yet during that Super Bowl run. Sure. Jermaine Kearse is clutch as clutch can get. I'll take Cooper Kupp over Jermaine Kearse by a considerable margin.
Yeah.
I'd probably take Zach Miller over AJ Barner. One of the more underrated tight ends, I think Zach Miller was. And I think could have put up a lot bigger numbers playing for a different offense as well. I think Russell Wilson's the better quarterback, and I want to make it abundantly clear that this is not an insult to Sam Darnold, who had an unbelievably good season, and we have sung the praises of. Russell Wilson was a budding superstar, whereas Sam Darnold was a really good top 10 NFL quarterback. To me, I go advantage Wilson there. It might be the last time outside of one position that I go advantage Seahawks, though.
Rob, what do you think?
Well, the scout in me, of course, is going to certainly acknowledge Sam Darnold's greater, size, arm. I think he's actually a comparable athlete, to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson at that point had already demonstrated kind of just a wow factor to him. So I have to give him kind of the slight edge as far as who I would rather have at that moment. But at the same time, even Russell Wilson at his peak, Sam Darnold's ceiling, in my opinion, still is higher. And so the scout in me is always going to go back to kind of Sam Darnold in that regard. But if you're, had to make a decision right now, who is going to win the game between those two, I would go with Russell Wilson.
Ooh, see, this is such a hard one for me. I want to lean Sam Darnold more because I think later on, the next few years is when Russell Wilson really started to take off. I think he was still playing with a lot of training wheels in 2013. That was his second year. He did make some great plays, don't get me wrong. I want to say, even with Sam Darnold still being kind of not the main factor, and we'll get to the skill positions in a second, but I want to say that he was asked to do more in the offense than Russell Wilson was in the offense in 2013. And I guess statistically, Russell Wilson would be slightly ahead if you look at passer rating and QBR and stuff like that and the rate stats. But I just think in terms of the reason for this team's success on the offensive side of the ball, I would give a little bit more to Sam Darnold in this season than Russell Wilson in 2013. That's not saying that, it's not close. I mean, it is very close.
Mhm.
They did it in completely different ways as well. Russell Wilson more with his legs, Sam Darnold, bigger plays, stuff like that. But I think it's very close. Let's go to skill positions. This includes running back.
Wow.
Running back, wide receiver. I think the pretty obvious choice is running back 2013 Seahawks with Marshawn Lynch, but wide receiver JSN and the 2025 Seahawks. So overall, where do you put the skill position group, Chris Crawford?
Boy, since you combined them, and I'm glad you
Yep.
did, just because,
Yes.
It makes it a little more fun, because Marshawn is one of the more special Seahawks of all time and such a great player. He was an underrated receiver, a guy who was willing to be a exceptional pass blocker, and just has some of the biggest moments in Seattle sports history, and took over games at times. But if we're talking about just 2013, it's advantage Marshawn. It's definitely advantage Marshawn. And that's, again, no insult to Kenneth Walker. But I'll give the edge to the 2025 Seahawks because I think the receiving core destroys it. Jackson Smith and Jigba is so much better than anything they had in that passing attack, in my humble estimation. And again, Doug Baldwin, fantastic, unbelievable route runner. JSN is a more athletic Doug Baldwin. That's just the kind of the easy comp to me, but you can't help but see it. But I'll take what they have at that skill position for 2025, even with Marshawn having the edge over K9.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a fun one.
It's really close. Honestly, I'm going back and forth in my head. Rob, what do you think? Maybe convince me.
Yeah, I have to agree with what Chris just said. I thought that Marshawn Lynch has a significant advantage in my mind over Kenneth Walker III. With all due respect, K9's a fantastic talent as well. But once you throw in the receiving core into this conversation, then it's not just JSN to me. I mean, very much Rashid Shaheed as well, that straight line speed element. And I'm remembering Percy Harvin as well.
Sure.
And
great point.
The big times, the big playability that he possesses also. I just think that, because because JSN kind of tilts the field so much in one way, I just kind of have to go back to, and of course, Cooper Kupp. I have to go back to, ultimately the 2025 skill position players for me would get the edge.
Yeah, I think AJ Barner and Zach Miller, in my opinion, is a wash. I think they're both very underrated in what they do, especially on the blocking side of things. I love how both of them, fly under the radar. Just perfect tight ends for Seahawks history, in my opinion. The question is it a bigger gap between Marshawn Lynch and Kenneth Walker, or between JSN and Doug Baldwin? And I am in the belief that Doug Baldwin is still underrated to this day. Sure. I think he's very much was one of the big reasons that Russell Wilson was as successful as he was, because of how well those two were connected, especially on off-script plays. But I still think I give the edge, like you guys said, to the 2025 Seahawks, especially if you throw in Turbo. I love you. Yeah, it was very heavily Marshawn in that year. If they had given Turbo more carries, this is a different conversation.
Give 22 the ball.
Yeah, right. But I think with Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, it makes that gap a lot closer to Marshawn than it would be with the Baldwin to the leading receiver in the league, which is JSN. So
by the way, we kind of forget Baldwin wasn't the number one wide receiver in that offense at that time. It was Golden Tate.
It was.
And it's still big advantage to me of JSN over there. And I'd probably go Cooper Kupp over Doug Baldwin at that stage of their career. At that stage, it gets close, but I just think what Cooper Kupp did to create some of the seams that they had in this offense, and how clutch he was and Doug Baldwin had some great moments. Doug Baldwin's one of my all-time favorite Seattle Seahawks, so I feel bad saying anything bad about him, but JSN was the offensive player of the year.
Yes.
like, and deservedly so. I just think you have to go skill position Seattle Seahawks.
All right,
Well,
offensive line.
that's where I wanted to
Yeah,
just for a moment wanted to jump in there, because like while we do this position by position kind of a conversation, I'm thinking Seattle's receiving core of 2013 versus Seattle's defensive backs of 2025, and vice versa. And to me, where things would really get interesting is if you were to see, say, Seattle's current receivers, JSN primarily,
against the LOB,
Richard Sherman, and Sherman's ability to kind of just envelop at the line of scrimmage, Earl Thomas's speed over the top, and then Cam Chancellor. I mean, can't you just look? I'm certainly not wishing any type of injuries on number 11, but I could see Cam Chancellor one big hit and lights out, and then do the Seahawks have the rest of the receiving core to be able to challenge that great defense? And so that's ultimately why we can have the conversation position by position as we go. But if you're going to put me on the spot and say who I think is actually going to win the game, I'm actually going to go with a team that I can't believe I'm saying that I think that any team ever perhaps is more physical than the 2025 Seahawks, but I think the 2013 Seahawks were. And that's ultimately where I would go that direction.
That's a great conversation, because we can go comparing on the same side of the ball versus the opposite side of the ball, right? So that's a totally valid point, Rob. I agree with that. Let's continue with the same side of the ball comparison as we talk about the offensive line. Chris,
I think that this offensive line, even with a significant hole at right guard, I still think this offensive line is better. By the way, the two best players on the field in this Super Bowl, in my personal opinion, just watching it over again, were Devin Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, who, oh my gosh, I hope I never have to see him play against the Seahawks ever again. And we're going to see it in probably the very first game of the year, just to be honest with you. And Abraham Lucas was a baller in that game. Best game that he's played as a Seahawk, bar none. Incredible game from him. I still think that I would give the edge. I love Russell Okung, but I think I would give the edge to Cross at this point. I think I would give the edge at left guard with Gray Zabel. Center, I probably go Tobeck. I think I would go Tobeck. That's fair.
Unger,
excuse me. Yeah, there's the age, by the way. There is that age showing up there. And then right guard is Vantage Seattle 2013. But
I'm trying to, Rob, I don't know if you remember, was it Brandon Giacomini that was right guard for the 2013?
No, he was the right tackle.
Sweezy. J.R. Sweezy.
J.R. Sweezy. Yeah. That's right.
J.R. Sweezy, absolutely advantage over Anthony Bradford. Absolutely 100,000%. So, I just think this offensive line on the whole, and creating a hole was better than the 2013 line.
Yeah, it's a weird one for me, Rob. As I get to you, I think in my head, the interior of the 2013 offensive line was better, and the tackles of the 2025 Seahawks were better. But I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, similarly, I think that Anthony Bradford obviously has had struggles. We talked about that a lot. I think that the interior, I think that's efficiently said, but I would echo what Chris mentioned before about Abe Lucas. I don't think that he gets nearly enough attention for how dominant he played. I mean, same thing with Carlos Cross. I mean, I thought that Lucas is even better, but we talked a lot in the build up to the Super Bowl that, about Harold Landry and Caleb on Chase on both of them to wind up with one tackle each. That's it. I mean, no tackles for loss of sacks. Seattle's tackles played a critical role in how easy that game was for the Seahawks.
All right, before we move on to the defense here in the next segment, play callers, Clint Kubiak versus Darrell Bevell.
I think it's a massive advantage for Kubiak, and I'm trying not to think about 2014, and I'm not.
It's not that year, Chris. It's not that year.
I'm doing my best to. My therapist told me that year actually didn't happen, so I don't have to worry about it. But I have to go. I've just grew more and more impressed with Clint Kubiak, just more and more impressed with what he did. And I think what he did creating schemes, and also there were very few times that I just went, what the hell is that play call? I cannot say the same thing for the 2013 Seahawks, as good as they were. So I have to go with Kubiak. Have fun in Las Vegas, bud.
Rob.
Yeah, I agree. I thought there was such ingenuity.
Yeah.
The way that they put the receivers in motion, the way they utilize tight ends, JSN specifically in the backfield. Early on, even Jalen Monroe, just the creativity, the barn door, short yardage plays. I mean, I just thought a lot of very, just kind of creative and ingenious, really, play design.
Yeah, hand up for me. Hand up. As I'm doing my hand up. We did a kind of, on the Infernest show on Sports Radio 93.3 KJR, I believe Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember exactly which day it was. We did a Bless Me, Father, for I have sinned. He's a Catholic guy. So we kind of did the whole reconciliation part. Where were you wrong about the 2025 Seattle Seahawks? My initial thought was Clint Kubiak. I, for the longest time, was like, this guy is going to hold us back with his play calling. And even late in the year, I was pretty frustrated with a lot of, the decisions offensively. But man alive, did he come alive in the playoffs. Yeah. And I was very impressed by how efficient the offense was working and doing, again, playing complementary football, doing everything you needed to do, knowing how well your defense was playing. Speaking of how well your defense was playing, let's go to the fun side of the ball with the defense. I think overall, all three of us would agree we give this slight edge to the 2025 Seahawks offensively.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about defense. Both these teams were built on defense.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hard one. I understand that. But let's talk 2013 Seahawks defense versus 2025 Seahawks defense. Let us know in the comments what you guys think about our decisions so far. We'll come back and compare these two legendary defenses on the other side of the break. Welcome back, Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hurst, Chris Crawford, Rob Rang. We are comparing the two Super Bowl champions in Seahawks history, the 2013 Legion of Boom defense / team versus the 2025 Dark Side defense / team. And both of those teams are well known by their defenses, and that is the side of the ball we have upon us right now. So let's start. I'm going to start actually on the defensive coordinator / head coach. I'll put these. You know what? No, I'll separate them. I'm going to separate them. I'm going to put head coach in a separate category.
Okay.
Let's do defensive coordinator. I guess it's kind of a weird situation because you have Pete Carroll didn't call the defensive plays for the Seattle Seahawks. It was in 2013. It was Dan Quinn at that point. Right. So I'd struggle to put Aden Dirty on the same level. So I'm going to say Mike McDonald as a play caller compared to Dan Quinn as a play caller / schemer. Just in terms of overall on specifically that side of the ball with their scheming. I'm going to say that as the kind of grounds for this. Chris Crawford.
So this is going to sound blasphemous because Pete Carroll is one of the greatest.
It's Dan Quinn. It's Dan Quinn.
Okay, so we're talking about Dan Quinn against Mike McDonald.
Correct.
It's Mike McDonald because the adjustments that I saw Seattle make were better than the adjustments that I saw in the Carroll Quinn and / whatever era. So I go with McDonald there just because, I mean, he's a stubborn bastard too. Like, he knows his scheme. He wants to do his thing too. But I do think that there were adjustments made, like more so. The one criticism of the Carroll defense at times was he was going to keep that cover 3 no matter what. They could be up 40. They could be down 40. We are running the same defense over and over again. And I think it hurt them at times. I can't say the same thing for McDonald, so I give him the edge.
Rob.
I think that's very well said by Chris. I mean, it's a relatively simplified defense that Pete Carroll and Dan Quinn use, at least in comparison to Mike McDonald.
Right.
There's no question he's got some superior athletes, but I think that this is the easiest conversation so far. And I mean that with a great deal of respect for Dan Quinn and certainly for a guy who should be in Canton someday in Pete Carroll.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think just if you're talking scheming specifically,
Mhm.
I'm giving the edge to Mike McDonald, and this is, I think, the easiest conversation we can have. The 2013 Seahawks defense was good, not because of the different positions their coaching staff put them in, but because of how good each of those players were. So let's talk about those players. Defensive line. What do you guys think? D-line, you got Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett, Chris Clemens. Am I missing someone? Was Brandon Mebane on that team? I believe he was.
Yeah, Mebane, Tony McDaniel.
Red Bryant, Tony
Red
McDaniel.
Bryant. Yeah.
All right, Chris, what do you versus the core four of Jaron Reed, Leonard Williams, DeMarcus Lawrence, Byron Murphy. You could throw in DeMarcus or Derek Hall on that as well.
I think this is the closest battle that we have because I will give the edge to the, pun intended, to the edges for Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill and Chris Clemens and their. But I think the Seahawks have the advantage in the interior. This current version, the Seahawks have the advantage. I like the Seahawks to beat the Seahawks. I think that Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy and Jaron Reed and them are better than the Tony McDaniels and some of the guys that they were playing at defensive tackle at that time. Both really good groups, really, really good groups. And Chris Clemens, one of the most underrated Seattle Seahawks, I think, of all time.
100%.
His ability to make plays was so underrated. And that's no insult to Cliff Averill or Michael Bennett or any of those guys. And Red Bryant was one of those guys who helped them run their scheme. But I just think the talent in the interior, I'll give a very slight edge to the 2025 Seahawks, but it's so close.
Rob?
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. I think that the edge talent is better for the 2013 squad. I think that the ability to hold up and run support is really where the edge group for Seattle is, where it's better. And it's not as good of edge rushers as far as affecting the quarterback, but the defensive tackle talent for Seattle, especially Byron Murphy. Look, with all due respect to Brandon Mebane, I think another one of those, like you mentioned, Chris Clemens being underrated. And I agree. I think that Brandon Mebane is also very underrated.
No doubt.
But what Seattle has in terms of their length, their strength, their versatility, and then just the depth. I think that this defensive line is one of the best that we've ever seen, frankly.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's very rare cases where the four starters could make a case for first or second team All-Pro.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case with this 2025 Seattle Seahawks team.
No doubt.
You can't say that about the 2013 team. You could definitely say that about Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
I think that stops there. And I love Chris Clemens, and I love Tony McDaniel, and I love Red Bryant. Those guys absolutely played major roles in what made that team good. But I think the four guys that we talked about in this 2025 team are, I don't know, they're on a different level, especially when you put in the fact that this team rarely blitzed. And I know the 2013 rarely blitzed as well, because they had so much faith on what was in the back end.
Sure.
But this defensive line getting pressure with four consistently, especially in the Super Bowl, man. I feel like in both Super Bowl wins were very dominant fashion defensively. It was in different ways though. For this one against the Patriots, it was very much getting to Drake May, putting pressure on him and forcing him to make bad decisions. And I think you could say that to some extent in the 2013 team, getting pressure on Peyton Manning and the Broncos, but I think more of that was due to the secondary and their high level of play than it was the defensive line. So I think that's a good representation of these two teams and how different they are, but both effective in similar ways. So I would also give the edge to this 2025 defensive line. Oh boy, this is going to be a tough one for me, but I think I know the answer. Linebackers. Chris.
This is honestly not that tough for me. Bobby Wagner is the best middle linebacker I've ever seen in my life. And if you have that,
might be the best of all time, to be completely honest.
Ernest Jones is a wagon. And like you said, he's freaking awesome. And it's one of the best trades John Schneider's made. I think I've said that like 40 times on this thing. But the difference is KJ Wright and Bruce Irvin and those guys just clobber what Seattle has at linebacker. There's guys like Kevin Pierre-Louis who would be starting for a bunch of teams then, and Michael Morgan who would be starting for a bunch of teams back then. Seattle's linebacker is one of the few spots, and Drake Thomas struggled in the Super Bowl. Like, he struggled and missed a few tackles that almost hurt them. By the way, Josh McDaniel, I don't know why he didn't just keep throwing to the running back. It was open every flipping time, wide open. I don't know why they didn't go to it, but hey, thank you very much. This is no insult to anybody, obviously, but that Seattle linebacker core, it doesn't get nearly enough attention because KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner are two of the very best linebackers who played at that time. And having a guy like Bruce Irvin as well is a pretty nice thing to come off the edge to.
Rob?
It's funny because I'm very much dating myself here. But in early conversations as a kid, my favorite linebacker I'd ever watched, read anything about him was Jack Lambert of Pittsburgh Steelers.
Nice. Okay.
And then there's this great picture, of course, him with his tooth knocked out. He just looked like what I want a linebacker to look like. And I would always try to throw out that name, Jack Lambert, as if I knew something, about the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then I had a guy who was like, yeah, what about Jack Ham? And that's the thing, is like KJ Wright was a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker himself, but so rarely do people talk about him because Bobby Wagner was, as you guys said, and I agree, arguably the greatest inside linebacker the NFL has ever seen. I mean, he's right up there with the Ray Lewises or the Jack Lamberts or Mike Singletaries or anybody you want to mention. I mean, you have to mention Bobby Wagner along with him. And so, as you guys both said here, I think that Seattle's current linebacker core is a very good one. But at the same time, we're talking about arguably, if not the best in one of the absolute best in all of the NFL, and certainly the best in Seahawks franchise history.
Yep.
By the way, Bobby Wagner also being one of the most handsome players in the NFL is ridiculous. That's just not fair. Seeing him win NFL Man of the Year, by the way, during the Super Bowl was awesome, and I don't know if it was obvious on TV, but the 12s gave him a very loud round of applause. So that was really cool to see.
He'll always be welcomed back here. Hot take on my end. He was the best player on that defense.
I don't think it's that hot of a take. I don't think I'll tell you who I think it was in a second, but I think that is definitely one of the best. Absolutely, for sure.
I know the team was known for their secondary, and we'll get to that in a second. I think if you're talking about being the best at your position, it was Bobby Wagner, period. Sure. End of story. He was an all-pro. I think he's a 6-time all-pro, first-team all-pro. He'll be in Canton. Absolutely. No question about it. He'll be in the Seahawks Ring of Honor. No question about it. Ernest Jones might be my favorite Seahawk on this current team. It's crazy how much I love middle linebackers, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Those guys, the Green Dotters.
Sure.
All right, let's do it. Let's talk secondary. Is there any conversation here, Chris?
No. That's as good as any secondary that's ever played football. And to me, the best player on the Seattle Seahawks, the reason that the cover 3 worked so well was Earl Thomas. And I love Cam Chancellor and I love Richard Sherman, and Byron Maxwell had his moments of being an awfully good player as well. And I think that's the one thing you could talk about, was that maybe Tariq Woolen is better than Byron Maxwell. Like, we could have that conversation about whether or not he belongs in that. But I hate that he gave up the touchdown, by the way. It was good coverage. Just Matt Collins just got his hands up in time, but blah, blah, blah. The Seahawks safeties are just, and I love Julian Love and I love Kobe Bryant. And I love Niki Manwari is going to be a superstar and has a chance to be one of the great safeties. Like, everything he showed this year suggests that this guy has a chance to put on a yellow jacket, right? But Cam Chancellor someday will put on a yellow jacket, and I think Earl Thomas will as well, because I just think the respect that those guys have from the PFF writers is ultimately going to go. But that Seattle defense worked so well because you had a guy in Earl Thomas who covered not just sideline to sideline, division to division. Like, he was literally moving across the country. There's never been a free safety who was better than that, in my personal opinion. It sucks that his name's kind of been sullied, and he deserves some of the sullying that has come from the off-field stuff. It's gross. It's disgusting. But he was a fantastic player, and Richard Sherman's one of the greatest cornerbacks to ever play football and one of the smartest cornerbacks to ever play football, and a guy who I don't really like listening to talk anymore, but he's a really really special football player. As good as this secondary is, and it's great, we're talking about the best secondary, I think, to ever play the game.
Rob, I don't want to speak for you. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming you agree that the 2013 team is better. Is it close?
Oh, I think it's close. I think that through this entire conversation, we now know what a great player Bobby Wagner is, and he was a great player back in 2013, of course, as well. But like the same thing I was saying before about KJ Wright, or there was very few. I think like established stars for the Seahawks defense back in 2013 before they won the Super Bowl. I mean, the Cliff Avrils and Mike Bennett had some success elsewhere, but most of them kind of developed into stars in Seattle during that Super Bowl run. And whereas I think with Seattle's defense currently here, including its safety with Julian Love, but definitely along the defensive line, with DeMarcus Lawrence and Leonard Williams, especially. I think that there's just, we are showing some recency bias and also a little bit of just encapsulating some players' brilliant careers in that one year that was the 2013 Super Bowl champion. So that to me, like when I look at this secondary for the Seahawks now, it's difficult for me to be like, well, what could Tariq Woolen be in a couple of more years? Could he be what Richard Sherman was? Because I thought Richard Sherman may have just been the best cornerback all around in terms of pass coverage, in terms of ball hawking, in
run
terms
defense,
of the run defense, the tackling. Remarkable player, and so this is the one that actually I struggle with probably as much as any. I do think that Seattle's secondary of the past, and I agree with what Chris said as far as just Earl Thomas's ability to just completely erase the deep ball, just made Seattle almost unbeatable, especially against a high octane passing attack like the Denver Broncos had that year. But at the same time, I also just see the scout in me is just drooling with what the Seahawks have in their secondary right now. Yeah,
it's a weird one for me because I originally wouldn't have thought it would have been close. I think it's pretty clearly Cam Chancellor was my favorite player from that team. I think Bobby Wagner was the best player from that team. I think Richard Sherman was the perfect player for that team. Same with Earl Thomas. Like there's so many different ways that was just a perfect stars aligning moment for the Seattle Seahawks. Nicky Manwari is the X factor. Mike McDonald with his scheming, and Nicky Manwari is his ability to play nickel, but also stop the run on a higher level than has ever been done before in NFL history from a nickel or dime perspective. That this Seattle Seahawks team would have done. And that's, if we're talking this team versus that team,
right?
That's how that team would have gotten a lot of their offense was from Marshawn Lynch, right? So I don't know, man. I still think it's the 2013 team, but I think it's a lot closer than a lot of people might think at this point in time, just because of the combination of Mike McDonald and his mad scientist persona cooking something up with Nicky Manwari just as an X factor. And I know you don't have the all-pro Canton, Ohio guys on this team.
Not yet.
Not yet, right? You could eventually, but I don't think at this point in time you don't. His ability to just fool young quarterbacks, who Russell Wilson was at that point, still in my head, I still feel like this defense is somewhat close to that one, but I don't know how you guys feel about that one.
The analytics agree with you, Anders. Like the analytics suggest that by DVOA, this is one of the greatest defenses of all time. Now they also say that about the 2013 season.
Yeah, I think it's 1 and 2, is it not?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, which is really cool. Congratulations to us who got to watch both of those and were young enough to appreciate it. Real quick, one of the things that gives me a huge edge here, a name that doesn't get brought up a lot. I sure wish Walter Thurman could have stayed healthy, because
Jeremy Lane as well
at his time. But Walter Thurman was the best slot corner in football, and it wasn't even close. Like you had no shot of completing a pass against Walter Thurman in that slot. And like as good as Nicky Manwari is, he's not the cover guy that Walter Thurman is, right? Like that's what's special about him, is that he is good in coverage, and he is good against the run, and he is good against the blitz, and he is very good at Twitter, is what we have also found out as well. But Walter Thurman being the third best cornerback on that team and just locking up slot receivers as well. cannot be ignored. It was
Yeah.
just such a special secondary.
I love that. All right. Head coach. So we've talked about Mike Macdonald from a scheming perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Head coach, leadership, kind of overall team culture perspective, preparation, kind of the general views that a head coach has. So we've talked about Mike Macdonald from a defensive kind of coordinator-ish perspective. Now as a head coach, as the guy that gets his guys prepared. Obviously, that was one of the things Pete Carroll was excellent at. But is Mike Macdonald on that same level, Chris?
Yeah, but I'm not going to say that he's better than Pete Carroll at it. But I just got to go tie. I got to go tie.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just like, it's one of those things where John Schneider didn't hire Mike Macdonald by accident. I think he was looking for, obviously they're very different, very different personalities. Like Pete Carroll would have you fired up about the long snapper on the practice squad and ready to like take bullets for him. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Mike Macdonald is certainly a positive guy, but he's much more laid back, and he's much more of a, he doesn't give you those great quotes that Pete Carroll did, where, I wrote an article about Pete Carroll the day that he got fired, and about how his relenting optimism sometimes kind of annoyed the crap out of me, because it was like, I want to hear you say that you're not having a good time, man. But it's one of the reasons it worked is because these players would have done anything for Pete, anything. I just got to go tie, because they're just in perfect. Pete Carroll was perfect for the 2013 Seahawks, and obviously Mike Macdonald was perfect for the 2025 Seahawks.
Rob.
Again, I think that's very well said. I think that Pete Carroll is as good at motivating people as anybody I've ever seen in the period. I mean, whether it be coaching or politics or public speakers or whatever. I mean, I think that he is remarkable in that. And I think that his mind as a football coach is Canton caliber as well. But I can't imagine putting anybody above Mike Macdonald, what I've watched him do. Of course, one of the relatively few negatives, very few negatives, frankly, with Pete Carroll, was that he was a bit stubborn, and he was a bit willing to gamble on guys who had some bad character issues. And many times he was able to kind of fold them under the wing and right any wrongs. We have not seen any type of character issues at all, really, with the Seahawks since Mike Macdonald has come onto the fold. And I think that as somebody who lives in the community, it does matter to me. And so I think that there's there's just some straight and narrow to Mike Macdonald that I think is something that maybe society, frankly, needs a little bit of. And so I hate to say a tie. In fact, I'm not going to say a tie, and this hurts me because I love Pete Carroll. I think that he is a phenomenal person. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm going with Mike Macdonald. I just cannot overstate how impressed I've been with what he has done on and off the field for the franchise.
Fair.
I've said multiple times throughout this year that I think this is the best coach football team that I've ever seen. I really want to say Mike Macdonald right now, and I think I'm going to. I'm trying to think of ways to put this. There aren't many coaches that would have gotten the same out of that 2013 Seahawks team that Pete Carroll did, but I think there are others that could have, because of how talented they were.
Interesting.
But I believe, and I'm not saying that Pete Carroll wasn't the best for that specific role, but I believe others could have, based on how talented they were. I don't believe any other head coach gets this defense to perform at this level, this team to perform at this level, frankly, than that Mike Macdonald did this year. It's been the most impressive part of this 2025 season for me. I knew this defense was good. We all did. We saw them at the second half of last year. Statistically, the best defense in the league. I knew he was a good schemer. I did not know that we were getting as good of a leader, as good of a culture builder as he was. And it feels like it is sustainable to me.
Yeah.
And I love Pete Carroll. He's the guy that frankly probably could have and should have had a lifetime contract here in Seattle
Mm.
because of what he did for this franchise when he
Yeah.
came. But I also love the move to move on from him and
Had to
go in a
happen.
different direction.
Had to.
Yeah, it had to happen.
Nuts.
And I applaud John Schneider and Jody Allen for making that decision. That's a
Mhm.
hard decision because, again, he is a very well-respected guy. There's a
Huge.
reason he got a job again at the age that he's at.
Mhm.
So I'm going to give the slightest edge of all time. For me, this was the hardest one.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think secondary is somewhat clear with the 2013 team. I think defensive line is somewhat clear with the 2025 team. This is the hardest one because they do it in such different ways.
Very different.
And it's so difficult because I also believe in the positivity message that Pete Carroll puts out. I really do. I think that's a very great way to live your life. But I also realize that it can be a detriment. And if you're the leader of a team, having high standards is not something to be sorry for. It's not something that, a lot of coaches can really do because they don't have a say in how they build this team. But Mike McDonald, in the way that he's built this culture, and again, if you haven't watched the mic'd up of the Super Bowl, please do. It explains how together this group is, how aware this group is of what needs to be done as a team in football, the ultimate team sport, where I think coaching matters the most more than anything else.
I totally agree.
That's why I think overall, not just in this coach, overall, this 2025 Seahawks team is the best Seahawks team of all time. But I will say, if they were to face one another, I would almost take the 2013 team, weirdly. Because it's so weird to say. I think this team is the best team, Seahawks team of all time. But I think if you were to go one-on-one and face each other in an ultimate Seattle Super Bowl-ish sort of situation, the 2013 team probably wins because of how much goddamn pride those guys have.
Oh, I mean, well, the one concern I would have is I believe Marshawn Lynch is now 39. And a lot of these players are in their 40s now. So they may struggle a little bit, I think, with the speed.
I'm talking like if the 20.
Yeah, we're talking about like a Madden simulation.
Yes,
There's no question about it. And here's the thing. In terms of who is like the greatest like collection of talent, it's so much TBA, right? Because there are guys on that 2013 team who are going to be wearing jackets. There are like, I can't guarantee that for a single Seahawk on the 2025 team yet. Can't do it. There's just not enough of a sample size for any of those guys just yet. Maybe Michael Dixon someday if somebody's smart and paying close attention to it. But like, there's no guarantee in that regard. And I think also if the 2013 Seahawks watched this video, they would be incredibly motivated.
Come after us. Yes, I know.
There's no question about it. By the way, Mike McDonald managed some personalities this year. You know, Tariq Woolen and Nick Ebenwearing and a few of those guys, it would not be the easiest for some coaches to handle. And I think he did a pretty damn good job. Devin Witherspoon, you know, there are guys on this team that are they want it to be known, you know what I mean? Like they're not selfish football players, but they have a swag to them and they have some personality to them. And that's not always easy. I think it pales in comparison to what the 2013 Seahawks were, especially now. But boy, it's close. I think I would give the edge to the 2013 Seahawks to win just because of the aura. I can't help it. And you know, if you ask me tomorrow, I might say a different answer. I might say something different. But if I had to pick one, I think the 2013 Seahawks. But if you're an analytical nerd, it's 2025 Seahawks by a lot. By a lot. This is one of the greatest teams analytically that has ever played the game, you dorks, you nerds. Go watch a football game, you nerds.
Rob, what's your overall take on that?
I think overall, you know, to me, one of the reasons why this particular iteration of the Seahawks, the 2025 Super Bowl champion Seahawks, is so much more likable, I think, because they have a humility about them. You know, there's so many of them, you know, that have been questioned and had to kind of pick themselves up off the mat at one time or another, whether it be Sam Darnold, whether it be a DeMarcus Lawrence, whether it be a Mike McDonald, is getting hired as head coach despite never having head coaching experience. I mean, Pete Carroll was as, proven as it got for the most part, having obviously coached the NFL as well as in winning championship at USC. So I just think that, the 2013 team to me is one that I think a lot of Seahawks fans look back with a great deal of pride, great deal of love. But at the same time, also like as a team that I think part of the reason why you like them so much is because they were so physical, they were so nasty, they were so aggressive, and just like
cocky.
We're the best, we know it.
Yeah.
And we want you to, and we're going to prove it to you. We have a chip on our shoulder that is just as big can be. Whereas this squad, it's like you almost feel like it's your buddy that you're like, oh, you overcame something, and
Right.
and here you are. Well, none of us can believe that you're doing it because you struggled so much, and yet here you are, and this is all happening. And oh my goodness, you're Super Bowl champions.
Right.
And so it's that desire, that kind of almost blue collar kind of work ethic that I think it might be a legitimate factor if these two teams were to play in our hypothetical football game here.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, I think that when the chips are down, to me, Russell Wilson still is a guy that I would probably give the edge with the quarterback position.
Okay.
But the defenses are just so damn good. And as I mentioned, if we had this matchup, I wonder if Cam Chancellor doesn't just lay out JSN or Cooper Kupp or whatever, and then just change this game completely. So I think it would be a complete defensive battle.
Yeah.
And I hate to get a little bit analytical on you, but with all due respect to Stephen Hauschka, Jason Myers is the longest field goal in history. He's the guy that had the most
game winner
in the Super Bowl. I got the Seahawks 2025 winning Super Bowl hypothetical over the 2013 Seahawks 3-0 on a Jason Myers.
There we go. I love it. I love it.
That's the most Seahawks thing ever.
Real quick. Seahawks special team battle is a really good one here too.
It is.
Yes.
I think I would go edge Hauschka over Jason Myers. As good as Jason Myers was this year, the accuracy from Hauschka was the best of any Seahawks kicker that I've seen.
I think
Here's
Jason Myers
the thing.
is superior.
John Ryan, if you look at the numbers, it's not even close. Don't watch football game, you dork. Look at the numbers. I'm turning it the other way. That's funny. People forget that John Ryan broke a record for the least amount of punt returns ever. It was so many fair catches as well. Dixon's a more talented punter and did a better job, but John Ryan did. And oh, by the way, if Percy Harvin counts here, that's one of the greatest special teams returners in history, and what he did for the Seahawks in that NFL game too. I
still take Shaheed.
I think I would take Shaheed too, just because Shaheed had an actual body of work. I think Harvin played in 2 games in that year, something along those lines.
Plus, everyone hated him. So,
well, everyone really hated him, but I loved saying Lamborghini Percy so much that I didn't care. I just had so much fun saying Lamborghini Percy, your chick, she's so thirsty, that I just loved it. But that special teams battle is really close too. Just we're so blessed that we got 2 of those football teams.
Yeah, and let me wrap it up by saying this. I know it's going to be if you're comparison, you're obviously going to put one above the other, right? Just the nature of this conversation. It's a fun conversation. But my point in all of this is that we can have that conversation. We have 2 Super Bowl champions in our history as Seattle Seahawks fans.
Great point.
And the fact that it's so dang close at almost every position, let's be completely honest, is so cool. And we probably have 2 of the best NFL football teams that have ever played this game if you look at 1 year span. And I think that gives me so much pride. There's no wrong answer in this. If you say the 2013 team, you're right. If you say the 2025 team, you're right. I honestly have I go back and forth in my head based off of different factors and everything like that. It's so hard to choose. And it's so cool that we have 2 complete dominant champions, 2 of the best teams of all time that did it in 2 different ways, but in ways that fans could absolutely rally behind, that there was no question that year they were the best team in the NFL. And it's fun to have these conversations about, who would be the victors in a hypothetical one-on-one Madden simulation, as Chris put it. So
yeah.
Rob, Chris, really appreciate you guys. I know we went long today. I apologize, but what a fun conversation. I honestly love doing these. It's a good kind of off-season topic as we sort of wrap up the 2025 season. We'll start to look ahead later on, NFL draft, what contract decisions, offensive coordinator openings, stuff like that. We'll do that moving forward here on Locked On Seahawks and the Seahawks Squad Show. But I wanted to get one more conversation in regarding how special this 2025 team was, because I had such a fun time with you guys, and you guys were a big reason why. So appreciate you. Appreciate all of you guys listening to us, watching us. If you're consuming us before, during, or after, I don't know how you consume us before, because that's kind of weird. You would be going ahead in time and then going back, but whatever. Sure. But thank you so much for being a part of this season with Locked On Seahawks. Myself, Chris Crawford, Rob Rang, Robert Turbin, Corbin Smith, Nick Lee. Am I missing anyone? I think that's everyone. That's it. So appreciate everyone who is a part of these, and we'll talk to you in a little bit. I'm gonna probably have a son soon, so you might not talk to me relatively soon, but you'll hear from us no matter what. So we'll talk to you then. Have a good one. Go Hawks. Enjoy the off season. We'll be with you soon.